The following is a paid program. The views and opinions expressed don't necessarily reflect those of NCI-FM.
Welcome to Speaking Up with Jessica Dumas. I'm a certified life coach that specializes in business, leadership, and all things speaking and confidence mindset. Let's chat. Hey, NCI friends and fam, how's your week going? Guess what season it is? It's conference season. I'm just kidding. I feel like every season is probably conference season. But you know what I get a lot of as a speaker coach? I have a 1-month coaching offer that is like more of an intensive. So typically the people that buy this coaching program is if you have an event coming up that you're speaking at, whether it's a keynote or a panel at an event. Typically it's the panels that I get a lot of that. But I wanted to talk a little bit about it, speaking on a panel, because this is something that people get asked to do a lot. And it's a really interesting opportunity. And I kind of go back and forth with whether or not I like panels because it's really frustrating, and it's frustrating for moderators. I feel like people are actually pretty excited to be a moderator in a panel. But if you are a guest speaking on a panel, there's a lot of confusion. You're not really sure how much time you're going to have. You don't know what you're going to be able to share. You don't really know how to prepare, especially if sitting on the stage at a conference is new to you. So I'm going to share with you some of my experience of being a professional speaker. I started out as an event planner, and I've been a paid speaker for 10 years now. It's been over 10 years. And I have spoken on stage in every single capacity, I swear. And the biggest frustration that I have is panels, but it's mostly because when you're sitting and listening to a panel, these are the areas that it fails. Is sometimes you're going to have someone who they just don't know how to stop talking, and they take up all of the airtime. And I get it. You have really fun things that you want to share with us, but it's not fair to other people who are on the stage and other people who are on the panel. And so that can be really frustrating. And that's really the moderator's responsibility. As the moderator, you have to know who is coming on the stage. What type of speaking personality are they? Are they someone who is going to need you to cut them off a little bit, and you need to practice doing that in respectful ways? I've done that on stage. I've had to go on stage and literally cut people off, but that's why I get paid. And I don't do it in a rude way. But the thing is, we scheduled so much time to hear you speak, and if you go over, you're taking time away from other people who need to also share a message on the floor. And to me, that's really important. And I credit that to me being a really good moderator and MC. I like to keep the schedule on time. And I also know how to manage the agenda when time goes over. So a little bit about my experience. But if you are a panel moderator, those are some of the things that you have to know in advance. It's who's going to be on, what is their expertise, what are the questions that you really want to hear from a specific person or panelist, and how are you going to moderate that? How are you going to manage that? There's some work that goes into moderating, and I don't think enough people are putting the work in. I'm just going to say it because I have attended so many conferences as MC, as a panelist, as a moderator. And I know like there is so much work that needs to go into it, because we also want to be able to give airtime to the people who maybe they're not as vocal. Maybe you need to be more creative with your questions and hearing what it is that they need to say. So you have to be very crafty with your work in how am I going to get this person to talk about this specific thing. So maybe you're asking leading questions, maybe you're asking open-ended questions. Of course, you don't want to be asking yes or no questions. Those are the worst for any conversation. But I wanted to give some tips on my experience that if you are going to be speaking on a 60-minute panel, and typically there's 3 panelists and 1 moderator, so that's already 4 speakers in 60 minutes. So when you think about it, that's not a lot of time. As the moderator and the organizers, I'm going to suggest that you create 3 questions, whether that's one question that everybody's going to answer the same question, or you're going to have 3 separate questions for each panelist. So you're going to have 3 that you're going to cover, but you're actually going to prepare 5 questions for each person. Or again, 5 questions that they'll each take a turn to answer. And the reason for that is 60 minutes isn't a lot of time when you have 4 people speaking. If you do the simple math, because I don't do complicated math, I'll tell you that, but if you divide 60 by 4, that's 15 minutes that each person should technically have some airtime. And yes, that includes the moderator, because as the moderator, you were asked because of your expertise. You were asked because you're already familiar with the topics or whatever the case might be. And so the audience is going to want to hear from you too. Typically, you're asked because you have a connection to the topic for a reason. And I also want to take an opportunity right here to say, if you have been asked to be a moderator or to sit on a panel or to present in a conference in any capacity, that you are already worthy of being heard. I mean, we're all worthy of being heard, but if you are already asked, you're already seen as an expert. People already want to hear from you. And the reason I thought I would take a second to say that is because a lot of the people that come to me for speaker coaching is people who are speaking in those capacities, and they're like, I don't know why they asked me. I don't know what to say. I don't think I should be the one on stage. I don't think, and they're really talking themselves down. Okay, this is something, these are regular conversations that I have, so no shame in any of that. It can be scary to be put on the spot, and sometimes being on a panel is a nice way to sort of wedge your way into speaking because you're not the only one on stage. Okay, so back to the timing thing. If we have a 60-minute panel and 4 panelists or 3 panelists and 1 moderator, that's 15 minutes airtime for each. And technically, you're not going to get that. It's not going to work out that way, but that's a guide. So a guide to follow. And then if we are going 15 minutes by 3 questions that I said that you're already going to prepare, then that works out to be 5 minutes. So you have a 5-minute response time for each person. And 5 minutes isn't a lot of time, especially if you're talking about something important. A lot of the panelists that I'll speak to, people are telling their stories. People are sharing their business that has to do with something really big and important. Maybe that's truth and reconciliation. That's a big one. I get people who are working on truth and reconciliation work and panels and presentations all the time. I used to do that work, so I feel really confident in being able to support people in that way. So after all of my simple math that I just shared, if you are a panelist, you need to have at least 3, and you should know those questions in advance. You can ask for those questions in advance. And sometimes panelists and organizers will have an online prep meeting where you spend 60 minutes or so and you're just going through some of the questions. And it's at that time that when you start having that conversation that you start writing out your notes. Because it's in those conversations that your juices start flowing, the responses start coming, ideas start coming. So take notes. Like, I like to use a pen and a paper. Sometimes I'll have a notepad open on my computer, but take notes. And once you know the questions out of the 3 or the 5 that you're going to get asked, once you know those questions, write out the most important point for you, because you're not going to get a chance to share all of your responses. And if you do, you might be hogging the airtime. And that's not what the panel is about. Any panel or any conference presentation is always about planting seeds, just like networking and you're doing your introduction. Those are all about planting seeds. It's not about telling every single thing that you know in the least amount of time. Please don't do that. It's difficult to listen to. People are not going to remember anything, and you just might look a little silly. There's just no reason for it, is all I'm saying. When you take the time to prepare your message when you're going to be speaking on a panel or speaking on any opportunity where you have the audience, you always want to know what is the ultimate point of your message. And the reason that you want to do this is because you might not get the time to share all of your 10 responses, and you shouldn't have to. A good speaker and a good presenter is going to know ultimately, this is the ultimate point that I want to make. So in 2017, I had an opportunity to speak on a panel, and it was women entrepreneurship, it was women in business, something like that. And I was the first person that got to respond to some of the questions. And one of the questions was about being able to make more money and charge for your services. And trust me, that is something that I struggled with for a really long time. And I was really excited about this response. And so I spent time deciding, if I only get 1 minute, and this is what I encourage you to do, if I only get 1 minute to answer this question, what am I going to say? Because if I get 10 minutes and I know for sure I'm going to have 10 minutes, then I can say a whole lot more. And if I prepare for 5 or 10 minutes, then I definitely have a lot to say. But when time runs out, it's so important to spend some time thinking about what is the ultimate thing that I want to say. Because what you don't want to happen, and this is what happens when you don't prepare, is you walk away from the stage or from the panel, from the interview, you walk away from whatever, and you're feeling like, oh, I didn't say what I wanted to say, or I shouldn't have said that. I should have said it this way. Did that even make sense? And so you're really going through that experience, you're replaying it, and you're beating yourself up when all you want to do is get your message across. All you want to do is share your ideas, and you were asked to speak on this panel or asked to speak at this conference because you have really good ideas, and it's really important for you to prepare so that you can feel confident in sharing it because you spent time. This is, at the end of the day, if I only had a minute or if I only had 3 things that I could tell people, it would be these 3 things. Everything else, the other minutes, you get to fill in with all of the gravy, all of the other parts of your talk that are not the ultimate point, but support the ultimate point. Does that make sense? I have a program called Build Your Talk. It's an online digital course, and I give you all of my tools in that program. You get my theme builder, which is a tool that you can use for anything, but you're going to use it to take all of the ideas that you want to talk about in any talk or presentation, or email or social media, anything like that. You can use it for everything, and it's going to help you come up with your ultimate points. And for your presentations, I have a talk structure and a guide on telling your 10-minute transformational story, helping you speak confidently and helping you get the words out and use what you came here to do to empower others with your voice, with your experience. This is something that's so important to me, and that's what I want to be able to share with you. So that's my recommendation if you are speaking on a panel. You know how to find me. JessicaDumas.ca is my website, and that's how you can find me on Instagram. And let's get you speaking confidently on any panel or presentation. Talk to you next week. Thank you so much for your time. Miigwech, ekose, merci. Get in touch with me on Instagram or my website at jessicadumas.ca.